Well, now it's time for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning. Dr. Constance, good morning. Please take it away.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good, ready to go.
Yes, we are ready to go. We have been ready to go since 6 a.m.
I tell you. We
have been on since 6 a.m. if you're just joining us. Okay, let's look at those stories that are shaping the news today, or the shaping the agenda today. Let's pull up this day newspaper first of all. We'll kick off from that. The key themes on the front pages today, insecurity, especially kidnappings. It's clearly the dominant story, overshadowing other national issues. The scale of the abductions is very large, making this one of the most serious school kidnapping crises in recent memory. There is a strong religious component in the discourse, with Christian groups particularly vocal and the Pope adding urgency to calls for resolution. This day goes with a photo news on the window, and the caption reads, "Securing Nigeria on their minds." That photo captures the Nigerian delegation to Washington, D.C., who have now met congressmen and women, the State Department, White House Faith Office, among others. This day also leads with a story and highlighting NNPC's audited financial statement, where it has declared a whopping 5.4 trillion naira profit, as well as 45.1 trillion naira in revenue. Vanguard newspaper has that security story as well, and says the United States will share intelligence with Nigeria as it demands action from the Nigerian government, even as arms requests will be treated as urgent from now. Southwest governors have said it is time for state police to be introduced given current developments. Leadership newspaper reads that the UK government has turned down Nigeria's request to transfer Ekweremadu to Nigeria to serve out the remainder of his prison sentence for organ trafficking. The controversy over alleged withdrawal of troops also takes center stage here before that abduction in Kebbi State. And so we have the governor asking the National Assembly to probe the military withdrawal before the abduction. Wike is warning property owners in Abuja, the capital city, to pay ground rents or risk sanctions. And finally, Southwest governors set up security fund and intelligence sharing system. Daily Independent reports that surveillance of the forest in the Southwest region is paramount to Southwest governors, as they demand the FG or federal government to make a move on that. On Nnamdi Kanu's case, Southeast House of Representatives members want a pardon from the president for him, and Senate President Akpabio unveils the federal government's counter-terrorism measures. New Telegraph writes about how DSS and Nigeria Air Force rescued the abducted Eruku church worshippers in Kwara State, and former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar formally joining the African Democratic Congress. It also reflects on Nigeria intensifying its bid to secure a United Nations Security Council permanent seat at the AU-EU Summit in Angola. The Vice President Kashim Shettima is representing Nigeria at that event. Daily Sun seems to be the only paper that focuses on the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement on the front page, talking about how Nigeria is eyeing a bigger share of that $3.4 trillion market. Also in this story, we're learning that Afrexim Bank is pledging a £40 billion support, or dollar rather. NNPC, the country's oil company, is to mobilize $60 billion investments across energy value chain. And another piece says it declares that a whopping profit of 5.4 trillion naira. The Punch reflects on a string of stories. First, talks of governors convening an emergency session amid school lockdowns due to rising abduction of students. Constitution review moving to state assemblies. The Monetary Policy Committee cutting interest rate in light of inflation, and Wike and Turaki's camps disagreeing on reopening of the PDP secretariat. Finally, in The Guardian, the military speaking on the multiple threats facing the country and, a raft of solutions being sought. by different stakeholders. Moving on to the international headlines, key international stories today in the Financial Times. Let's start with that. The US and Ukraine are still trying to knock out a deal which they are now positive about. The plan is to unveil a refined peace framework after criticism that an earlier 28-point US plan leaned too heavily toward Russia. Some of the more controversial demands include territorial concessions, limits on Ukraine's military, which they said have to be scaled back. Negotiations are ongoing, with European powers pushing for a version more favorable to Ukraine. Similarly, the Times newspaper takes a different angle, slightly different, saying that the EU shred the peace proposal and came up with a 19-point plan that they believe will work better for all parties involved. In The Guardian this morning, Jamaican reggae icon Jimmy Cliff has passed at age 81. Jamaican Prime Minister called him a cultural giant who carried the heart of Jamaica to the world. The I newspaper also goes with the death of Jimmy Cliff, describing him as reggae's great pioneer, as tributes pour in for him. The Independent leads with the reactions on the eve of the budget, as Chancellor of the Exchequer Rachel Reeves is warned of growth crisis in the United Kingdom. The leading economic watchdog has downgraded its forecast growth in each year until 2029. Reeves' job is believed to be on the line just 18 months after she arrived there. In Daily Express this morning, pensioners are battling to keep their homes warm in winter. Without help, amidst the high cost of living, they're really struggling. And many will not be able to cope if more tax burdens are placed on them. And then the Daily Mail reads that prudent savers will be terribly hit by Reeves in her budget. Now let's break down what this headline means for citizens. Let's return to this day newspaper. Yolanda, that photo news on our delegation that went to the US to negotiate with the United States, and we are hearing that there will now be a collaboration between both countries.
I think for a moment there's a sigh of relief, because this is what everybody has kind of been hoping for. This Nigerian visit to the US, I believe that it's still ongoing at the moment. It's still ongoing, so we don't know if there are more talks that are going to come out of it.
There will be more talks, yes.
Or if we have reached the max of
what
we're trying to reach.
Yes.
So from the report, it actually says that deeper intelligence is what the FG has been vying for all this time, which is what we know. That's what we've been discussing all these weeks ever since the CPC designation. So now the US has pledged enhanced security support in the form of intelligence as well as equipment. One other thing that struck me out of the report that was interesting and is good to note is that humanitarian assistance will be given to the affected communities in the Middle Belt. So, I mean, both countries have agreed to non-binding framework to start coordinating efforts on the ground here in Nigeria. So we hope that that yields some quick and positive results without much disruption to the everyday life of the Nigerian.
Well, quite a bit happening out there since that designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. First, we had that press conference by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Idris Mohammed, talking about Nigeria being open to collaboration with not only the US and other allies, anyone that is willing to work with Nigeria, they're open. There was also that talk about tracking the money. He said tracking the money in illegal mining, in trafficking and other forms of transnational crimes as well. We know that that hearing held eventually at the Congress in the US, with everybody airing their views.
Yes. United
States congressmen, the Nigerians that went there. Personally, we had advocates, human rights activists, experts, lawyers to speak on their experiences and on behalf of Nigeria. And then later we had, we now have the National Assembly actually holding meetings in the 6 geopolitical zones regarding insecurity, to hear directly from Nigerians what is happening on ground and how they can also help. And so we have a lot going on there. the question for me here now is this a lot of motion without movement? We're used to motion in Nigeria. We kick off, we make announcements. You know, the president has said, you know, we're going to withdraw all the policemen from VIPs because we need more of them in the communities where we have serious security challenges. He mentioned that recruitment of 30,000 policemen to help the force and to make them more professional. And yes, that is motion. The movement for me will be, are we cutting off those networks among those crime syndicates, whether it's the terrorists, whether it's the bandits, whether it's the kidnappers? Are we breaking their logistics? Are we breaking the funding? Are we being shown that, you know, in reality, that whatever it is that keeps them going in terms of funding, in terms of training, because these are sophisticated groups, you know. And it also dovetails into the bigger question of terrorism, that what we are dealing with in Nigeria is much bigger than we may think. It is a global trend, you know, that has been on for some years now, with the focus being on West Africa and terrorist group actually taking West Africa. And so that's why we see that problem not only in Nigeria, in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. And because they are transnational groups that are getting funding and training and weapons, you know, from global networks, it is much bigger than us. It is not bigger than us, and now says that we cannot handle this alone. We cannot handle it alone, and that's why this collaboration with the US might be helpful. It is, you know, it behoves Nigeria to decide what kind of framework that it wants in terms of that collaboration with not only the US, any other country that is willing to help us. But at this point, we know that from records and from what's been happening over the years, it is impossible for us to be able to fight this alone. These jihadists, you know, are making a play for not only Nigeria, but for West Africa. And the point is to take advantage of those ungoverned spaces, which they are already doing. And the plan is also to have that long corridor of governance, jihadist governance, from the Sahel all the way down to West Africa. And so that's what we're saying.
And there's a lot to look at concerning this entire issue. But I think what is most important right now is that we focus on what is currently being discussed at the moment and the agreements that are being brought up. You know, this framework that you spoke about, that's also in the report, talks about how it's non-binding. So that means that from time to time, the goalposts will shift. From time to time, we'll see that the goal is different, and we will continually see changes in how things are handled. I'm just hoping that with all the, you know, the attention that the world has been paying to what is happening in Nigeria will actually lead to results that will make a change for the everyday Nigerian. As well, you know, I think we also wanted to speak a bit about what is going on in Kebbi.
Yes, absolutely. So our crew is live on the ground in Kebbi State as we follow updates on the abduction of the schoolgirls and closure of schools in the state. Our Rice correspondent Godfrey Eshemoge is currently at Birnin Kebbi to give us the latest updates. Good morning, Godfrey. I hope you're doing great this morning. Can you bring us up to speed with what is happening on the ground in Kebbi State?
Yeah, good morning, Yolanda and Constance. This is Godfrey. I'm right now at the Rima roundabout in Kebbi. Birnin Kebbi is still very sleepy. Rima roundabout is not too far away from the government house in the state capital, Birnin Kebbi. As you can see, my cameraman can pan a bit. You can see the road, the extent of the road right now. Vehicles still moving, but in the, you know, little numbers. Kebbi State, Birnin Kebbi is still very much asleep. But right now, beyond that, there's the undercurrent of concerns about insecurity following the incidents of, following the incident of November 17th, where 25 schoolgirls were abducted from the Government Girls Comprehensive Secondary School, Maga. And the governor, yesterday, when he had a meeting with a delegation from the National Assembly, from the Speaker of the House of Representatives, led by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. He made a call to the National Assembly for a probe into what led to the kidnap of these schoolgirls, 25 of them. He has asked for this probe to be carried out as to why the military military personnel that were deployed to the school were withdrawn about 45 minutes before the kidnap incident took place. Of course, you recall that he has echoed these concerns, he has echoed these narrative since this incident occurred. But yesterday, he took it a step further by asking the National Assembly to probe this incident and find out who gave the orders and why the orders were made 45 minutes before the incident. He's not raising any allegation about collusion from the military or any security operatives, but he's asking for there to be clarity and accountability because the governor, Nasir Idris, is currently a troubled, currently a disturbed, very visibly disturbed man. He has caught every meeting that would have held, every political jamboree within the State House. He has caught that drastically. So insiders from the Kebbi State Government House have informed us exclusively that he is more like a shadow of himself since this incident. He just wants to get to the heart of this because he wouldn't want to have that tag as the governor, as the one who was in the, overseeing the affairs of Kebbi State when 25 school kids were kidnapped, and then he didn't get to the heart of it to resolve this current issue that is rocking the state. So that is more like an update for now from Kebbi State as it is.
Godfrey, thank you so much for that update. I think a lot of questions are floating around what is going on there. You've already mentioned that Kebbi State is still looking very sleepy, still very quiet. You've mentioned the sentiments of the governor, but something that came up in the reports that's not been highlighted is that some of the NGOs and the civil societies that are there were looking to take up a protest. Is there be anything of that sort on the streets? Have you been seeing anything that looks like, protests might erupt?
Well, of course, we're most likely going to see at some point in all of these, we definitely won't rule out certain groups voicing out their concerns about the general state of insecurity. I'm not particularly sure they'll isolate the Kebbi incident, but if that happens, that won't be strange because it is an issue of concern about safety of schools, safety of places where our children go to acquire education. It wouldn't be out of place to have NGOs and CSOs, if you like to call them that, come out to voice their concerns about the need for people to have safe spaces for their children to acquire education. So I'm not sure the Kebbi issue is an isolated case. So we're going to look at it from a generic point of view. And mind you, the protest can be anywhere because the issue of insecurity is a national issue. So Kebbi is just one of many issues that have cropped up in recent days, weeks, and months in Nigeria. So having protests about the state of insecurity, about the state of our schools with regards to safety won't be out of place. And as for Kebbi State, as for the state capital, right now there are no signs of any such protests going ahead, and I've not gotten any information from the state government that there is any such to happen any moment. But if that happens, that won't be strange because it is for justifiable reasons.
Okay, Godfrey, have you been able to speak to any students, parents, government officials, people from Kebbi in general, and what are you hearing?
Yes, for government officials, we've spoken with the Commissioner of Information and Culture last night. He spoke at length and he voiced his displeasure at the poor handling of intelligence with regards to, in the lead up to the abduction of the 25 schoolgirls. He voiced his displeasure. He was so displeased with the way the intelligence the information with regards to the subsequent kidnapping of these girls wasn't handled in time. Proactiveness, he faulted those who needed to have taken the right action at the right time didn't do so. So he has voiced his frustration like any other parent would have. So as for students so far and the parents of the school kids who were abducted, there are plans to reach out to them in the coming days. But of course, we won't let out what we're doing at the moment to get that done. But that is in the works at the moment. For security reasons and other reasons, we're going to keep that on the wraps. So we'll reach out to do the needful.
Okay, well, thank you very much for those live updates this morning. That was our correspondent, Godfrey Eshemuge, live from Kebbi State, giving us updates on the situation with the school abductions. Dr. Constance, let's continue with the newspaper review.
Yes, that was a very good one, Godfrey. Thank you to him traveling all the way to Kebbi State. You know,
at a risky time as well.
Yes, definitely. Let's pull up a New Telegraph to see another story there. A New Telegraph, former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar formally defects to the African Democratic Congress in his home state of Adamawa. He registered with the ADC in Jada local government area, which is his hometown. I mean, there were speculations this would happen. Finally, it has come. Now what? Now what? You know. I mean, Atiku led the left the PDP after years of supremacy battle with the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Nyesom Wike. You know, they had a running battle for years, you know, flowing from the 2023 presidential election where Atiku ran for or was the candidate of the party. Wike was interested during the primary, so it was a very fractious relationship, and he left eventually. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is reputed to be a serial presidential candidate as well as a serial carpet crosser or defector, having hopped through different parties over the years. He's been through Social Democratic Party, Action Congress, APC, PDP multiple times. So here he's now returned to ADC. So what does this mean for the party? He has vowed that the opposition will be strong in order to challenge the ruling APC. Can they really mount a challenge?
Well, your question is as good as mine, Dr. Constance. At 78 years old, he is still going strong, still pushing. And I believe that, you know, the report that we took earlier, he was seen holding his membership card, waving it in the air and, you know, kind of declaring that it is official. I think he said the same thing on his X account. And just as you've rightly mentioned, he's a high-level politician, former member of the PDP, and this move, I think, was very highly anticipated. So we wait and see what is to come.
Well, a lot would depend on several factors: who becomes the presidential candidate of the party, whether he decides to run again on ADC platform. Some have said, you know, he needs to give way for a younger candidate. So that would determine a lot. The other thing is how smooth the primary election is, because usually primary elections divide the party. That is where the fight begins. You know, people saying there has to be a candidate by consensus, and others saying no, we have to run, you know, a fair race where the true, you know, the person that is supposed to be the candidate emerges through a free and fair process. It's always been a problem for most parties. A lot will also depend on funding, you know, whether they're willing to spend. You know, in the past, he has been accused of not wanting to spend money. We know that Nigerian politics revolves around of the large campaign funding, without which you cannot go very far. And that's why people talk about structure. Also, the spread of the ADC. Does it have this kind of spread within Nigeria that is required for a party to win the presidential race? In this instance, they might want to ally with other parties. We don't know, you know, what that would look like, but time is running out. 2 years is really a short time to be able to, you know, do an alliance or work together in order to come to an agreement on who is the presidential candidate and how they want to run the candidacy. A lot on that front. Let's take another story about the UK rejecting the federal government's plea the request to have Ekweremadu deported to Nigeria to serve out the remainder of his tenure. Let's have Daily Independent there, Daily Independent newspaper, that story features there. And so we know that he was convicted of organ trafficking, he and his wife and a doctor that was involved. His wife has completed her sentence.
Right.
And here the UK says no. I think one of the reasons why they're saying that is that there is a lack of confidence that he will really serve out his sentence. You know, the UK is very serious about making sure that people pay for their crimes. There is no preferential treatment, irrespective of status, irrespective of political affiliations, irrespective of profile. The right thing must be done. I think that's what they're saying here. And so they don't want a lenient situation where he comes back to Nigeria and he doesn't serve out his term. And finally, Jimmy Cliff, such a cultural icon. Do you want to say something about that?
Yes, well, first of all, about the Ekweremadu case, you know, he was sentenced to 9 years. And, you know, the UK being very strict about not letting him come back, I don't think it's just about Nigeria and them not trusting the process. I believe that that aspect is, there's something in play there as well. But, you know, the UK does not mess around when it comes to cases that look like modern day slavery. Do you remember at the beginning of the year, around May, when a UN judge brought in a woman to be a domestic worker in her home?
Okay.
And this made big news because it was the same thing. They said this is modern day slavery. Okay. This cannot be done. So yeah, I think they really crack down when it comes to these type of cases. As for Jimmy Cliff, that's a very sad loss.
Less than a minute.
Oh,
we have
that's
to go.
A very sad loss, and you know, a big hit to the music industry.
It is a cultural icon, someone who uses music to fight and for resistance. That's all we can take on the newspaper review today.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We have a tune.
Oh, I love this song.
Oh, may his soul rest in peace.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think a lot of people can resonate with that song. It's going to be a bright, sunny day. Oh, lovely.
Okay. That's all we have time for here on Daybreak. It's goodbye from me, Constance Ikoku. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.
Yes,